Hey, what up, y'all? It's Mr. Cruz here, your friendly neighborhood producer, back with another video. And in today's video, we're gonna dive deep into my all-time favorite plugin. Let's go. This is Arcade. When I first found out about it, I had heard about it for a little while, but I had no idea what it was, how it worked. A plugin like this was very foreign to me, and it's not something I had ever heard of or was able to comprehend. To make it plain and simple, Arcade is a loop generator, editor, playback plugin that's also a sampler. And even that description does not really do it justice. I would say a lot of songs in probably the past 5-6 years have, especially hip hop songs, they have those like vocal samples in the background that are like really airy and reverby and like ethereal and ambient. 9 times out of 10 when you hear something like that in a song, it came from Arcade. So Arcade is the one plugin that has probably gotten me out of so many jams in the sense of me kind of biting off more than I can chew, saying, oh, you need a lo-fi beat? Yeah, I could do that. I know how to do that. Oh, you need like a Bollywood style beat? I could do that. I can make that. I don't know how to make that. Oh, you need like a 80s synth inspired kind of beat? I got you. No, I don't got you. I don't got you. Using Arcade, you're able to do and create so many different genres because it just makes it so easy. So I'm gonna give you guys a little rundown of what Arcade does, how you can use it, and if you're not already using it, like maybe encourage you to use it because it really is like a secret weapon. So Arcade is a subscription-based plugin, first of all. So it costs $10 a month. It's by output, but I would say I am very hesitant about any kind of subscription-based software because I like to own the things that I own. I don't like to rent them because obviously over time you end up paying more than what it's worth. But I will say this, with Arcade, they do subscription correct. They do it the right way. When I first started using Arcade, I would say out of all these different lines, so like these are kind of different styles of loops that you have access to. First of all, I've never opened Arcade and have never not seen something like this, like, hey, brand new kits, right? Look, all these labeled new. I've never opened Arcade and not seen this little logo, this little icon that tells me, hey, we've got some new stuff for you guys. So that's first of all. Second of all, they are constantly adding brand new lines. I want to say in the last year, they added Honey, they added Lead, they added all these 3 up at the top. They added Sasong, they added Tape, 0 Hour, Memento, 60s, they added that one. I want to say they added Ingredient, that was a new one. They are constantly adding and expanding the library that is in here. Now, of course, with all these hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of loops that you have access to, or these samples that you have access to, not all of them are going to fit what you need right now. But it is a great resource to be able to have access to them. Like I said in my example, somebody had approached me and said like, hey man, I'm a part of this film and like they need like this background Bollywood music. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna head over to Rhythm Culture because this one is all about like, you know, Indian inspired sounds. Bam, in like the course of like a couple hours, I was able to put together a track that sounded very reminiscent of like what you would hear in like a Bollywood movie or kind of like Bollywood style. And I could not have been able to do that if it weren't for Arcade. So I'm going to give you guys an example of what you can kind of do and what you can kind of create with Arcade. Let's start out with Hooked, because Hooked is probably the thing that you're gonna hear the most often. Let's download some of these new ones and kind of check out what we have. Now, when you download these aren't very big files, but when you download them, they are in your library and they're in there for good. So you can remove the downloads if you ever need to save space, but essentially it's there and it's a given. So look, this line, right, Hooked line has 263 sample kits in it already. Like that's insane. So let's go ahead and check this one out. Now, Hooked, each one of these lines have like its own style, its own genre, its own niche. Hooked is usually what you hear with those vocal samples, and if I made a really cool beat and I like the way it sounds, but like I feel like it's missing something to like kind of fill that space out, I'll probably use something like Hooked to add a little accented background vocal in it to make it sound really, to make it really stand out. Let's go ahead and see what we have here.
You don't know me.
And it has here some like default presets as far as effects go. So like you can control the tremolo, the tape. This is probably like saturation, dark delay, obviously like that's a delay, and reverb. So they'll have funky names for it, but they're usually like compression, filter, reverb, delay, saturation, distortion, you know, those kind of
We
things.
should get together sometime. We should get together some. Let's leave the parking. Don't you call me baby.
And with these, you can kind of change. So let's say on this one, I wanted to do, I'm making a beat and my beat is in C minor. And let's say my beat is not 120 BPM. Let's say my beat is, let's say 95 BPM.
You don't know me.
Bam. So it changes the key and it changes the tempo. Also, let's say, yo, I really like that, but like I've already got a melody that's kind of in that octave. I want this to be lower. I can hit a lower octave. You don't know me. I would say maybe that's too low. Like maybe I could pitch it really high up and then drown it out with reverb or a filter. Man, like man, it doesn't get that easier. And on top of that, it also gives you these like added sequencer effects. So for example, on this one, all of the white keys, I mean, you kind of can't see it right now, but all of the white keys trigger the samples, and then the black keys are little sequencer effects that you can apply to those samples while you're pressing them. So I'm gonna hold the key, and now I'm gonna hit this black key that you see being triggered right here. So this is resequence, and what it'll do is it'll jump between different spots inside of that sample, kind of like a granular synthesizer does, like a grain sample synthesizer, whatever. All right, so I'm gonna do that. All right, and then it has I believe it has 3 different ones. So then this one right here will apply a playhead. So this one you can select where in that sample you want it to jump to. So let's say like this one right now, it's selected, like you see in the background here, that the white playhead is playing where I'm already hitting or where I'm initially triggering that sample. But when I hold the black key, it'll start the sample from over here. And then you can change the speed. So I'm gonna set the speed to normal. You could also reverse the sample, and then you can also hit jump to cue. I don't really use this part anyways, but let's see what this sounds like now. I'm gonna turn loop off so that it kind of continues. You don't know me. You don't know me. Don't you call you down. And then here we have repeater, where like it kind of functions as like the resequencer does, except it'll automatically like loop certain sections. Again, I never really use those. I use resequencer, or using the playhead one. And not only that, but like you have a lot of control over the sample. So like if I want the sample to start at a different spot, I can do that. If I want to apply a tack or a filter, I can do that. If I only want to apply an effect to that one sample, I can do that. You know, I have a mixer channel for all of these samples. Like you're really not limited at all. Like you would think, oh, I can only trigger that sample. Like, no, you can trigger 2 samples. You could drop your own sample in there if you want to. Like I said, Arcade is a sampler. It's probably the 2nd best sampler that I've ever used in my life. But you can, it's not just a plugin full of loops that you can use over and over again. You have a lot of flexibility to make the samples sound like your own, or to change them so that they don't sound anything like what they initially sounded like. So Hooked is a favorite amongst a lot of trap producers, but to go over some of these, like this is like you would probably use like a lot of rage beats. You probably use something like Brainwaves. Leads, you could probably also, has a lot of heavy synths. Honey is very, I wouldn't say it's like very sweet, but that's probably an appropriate name. But like, you know, if you're making like a love ballad, if you're making like some smooth R&B joints, if you want like a really sweet melodic guitar sample, you're probably gonna go to the Honey pack. All right, but again, some of my favorites are taped. Whenever I'm making something lo-fi, I like to use tape. If I made reggaeton beats, I use Sazón. Memento is also a really cool one with a lot of accented guitars. If you're a trap producer, if you make a lot of trap beats, like you're using Drip. Distant Voices I like because it's not as similar to what Hooked is. This is like more angelic, airy, flowy, where you're maybe hitting 1 or 2 notes, and they usually hit them for like 1 or 2 bars. So it's a lot longer than, you know, what you would get with a Hooked one. My two top go-tos are Chopped and The Crate. So Chopped, what it is it'll play a melody, but obviously like the melody is essentially chopped up. So let's see what we can find here. So I'll give you guys an example. So that one has a lot of really nice things in it. I usually like to go to chop whenever I kind of want to have that like boom bap, staggered, choppy kind of sampled feel. But also the crate is a really unique one because what it has is it's literally samples from songs that have copyrights expired. So you get the ability to sample songs that are pretty much public domain. Again, a lot of them are like very old songs or classical music, but more often than not, you'll find a really dope gem in here. So let's see what actual song they sampled here. So this is Angels of the Realms, whatever that song is. But you kind of get the idea. Like it's a lot of public domain joints. And lastly, what I want to show and what I want to share is, again, this is why I vouch for Arcade, because they do subscription right. They continue to add value to what you're already paying for. Is in the past year, they added something called note kits. So previously you had these sample kits, which is what I just shared with you. You hit a note and that note is going to trigger a loop or a sample, and then you can kind of manipulate, edit, chop, reverse, do all these things to the sample that is already being triggered. They recently added note kits, and what note kits are is they pretty much turn these sounds into notes that you can now polyphonically play. So let's say in one of those kits that you had heard, I found this really cool like guitar sample, and I really like the guitar sample, but I wish I could play my own melody using that same guitar sound. Well, like that's kind of what they created. They took the samples that they created, isolated the notes, spread that note across the keyboard, and now you have brand new virtual instruments. So let's go to this. Let me see this first one here, Drip, called Luxurious Pluck. Bam. So now I have yo, I just came up with that on the spot. That is fire. So essentially, like, I will never run out of sounds. Like, I can throw Omnisphere away. I can throw Expand away. I can throw like so many plugins that I have that I use away, because now I have a plugin that is infinitely gonna give me new samples every single week. And with this, like, you can select, all right, I want a bass, or I want a flute, I want a guitar, I want a bell. You can even go by genre. You can even go by description. Description is usually what I go through, where like, all right, I want something chill, I want something ambient, I want something trap. And also with this, you can go by lines. So as I said, I make a lot of trap beats. If I wanted to explore or only use sounds and samples, note kits essentially, from the drip line, then I can only use drip line. So I can select, all right, I want to filter out everything else because I know what kind of beat that I'm making, and I know that drip usually has the sounds that I want. So bam, like look at all these patches. Out of every plugin that I've ever gotten, I think I wish I would have invested more into Arcade when I first started making beats, because this not only made my production run a lot smoother and run a lot quicker, but it also taught me a lot about how to make melodies, and it taught me a lot about music theory. Well, anyways, that is what I got for you guys. Hit the like button below if you feel like you've enjoyed this video, if you feel like you've learned something. Also, if you are a user of Arcade, let me know in the comments below what your favorite line is. And as usual, once you're done making those beats, head on over to BeatStars, sign up for an account. You're welcome to use my link, which is in the description below. And if you use my link and sign up using my code CRU230, I'm going to hook you up with your first month of BeatStars completely for free. Not to mention, if you have Arcade, like, you're going to be able to make a lot of beats in a very short amount of time that you can already start your catalog out with a bang over on BeatStars. Outside of that, that's what I got for you guys. It's your boy, Mr. Cruz. Out.